Take 3. In my first video on this channel, I replaced the thermostat unit itself rather than the entire assembly, which has caused my car to have an additional problem. Within the assembly there is an inner pipe on the assembly, and that is now broken on the inside, as you'll see later on in the video. There's also a bad sensor on it, and my water pump is weak. As you see on the video footage here, the temperature is flatlining on the engine temperature, and this is kind of a problem. The car's not supposed to run at these low levels, and I also can't tell when it overheats if it does. These are all common problems that arise in this vehicle at about 100,000 miles. To start the process, we first have to remove the plastic pipe, which covers both the air filter and runs to the throttle body. This is a simple process. You loosen the hose clamp with a flathead screwdriver, then unclip the plastic section where the air filter is. Be sure to remove the air filter and stow it in a safe location when doing the repair. Before removing the throttle body, be sure to remove all the rubber cables that antifreeze runs through. Make sure to remove them carefully as not to break them, and put them in a safe-ish location so you don't lose too much antifreeze. It is money that you have to spend if you lose antifreeze. For this next step, since we don't have to snake the wrench in there, we're just going to be using a 5/16 socket and a reducer, as well as an extension. Now the next step that we're going to do is we're going to be removing the throttle body so we have easier access to the next section. It is 4 5/16 bolts placed around the item. As an additional reminder, don't forget where you put the wires and tubes when it was all together. This is very important. Now for this next section, we'll be taking off the throttle. Of course, when taking the car apart to this degree, on any car really, it's a good idea to clean things. In this case, we're cleaning the throttle body. It's a point where the car gets dirty, and it won't work as well if you leave it dirty. As for what to clean itself, make sure to clean the metal where it butts up against the gasket and the metal on the car. This is very important, especially because in the air system, if you have a vacuum leak, your car will not be happy. You can see part of our problem right here. The inner pipe on this unit is broken off inside, and that's causing the car to run cold, as well as the sensor. This is, of course, why, as somebody commented, I don't know the name, that we should have just replaced the entire housing. The metal between the intake manifold and the throttle body is simple, aside from the fact that you're going to have to snake in if you're using our method when we started. And all you have to do is unbolt 4 bolts, which, to make it a little easier, you unbolt a portion of the EGR valve. And this will be simple and easy for you to do. With the EGR valve off, we now have easier access. We have, in this case, a 5/16 socket hooked to a 3/8 inch drive. Because in my case, we had a weak water pump in addition to all the other problems I had. We're also going to be replacing that in this video as well. In order to get to it, you must remove the idler pulley from the water pump pulley. And to do this, you have to go to the idler tensioner and put a breaker bar on it, loosen the idler belt, and then slip the belt off of the water pump pulley. To get the water pump pulley off, there is 3 bolts placed around it. Then once you do that, you may or may not have to either A, use the correct tool to remove a pulley that could be pounded on, or B, use a hammer and tap lightly around it in order to pound it off. But this is not recommended unless you're very careful. After that, you simply use a 5/16 socket or wrench to remove the bolts that are holding it on. In our first video, and well, until we were recording this video, we didn't really know one major thing about this assembly. It comes apart. Yes, it comes apart. There's a little rubber O-ring in it between sections, and you can pull it apart from there. You will see us use this method on reassembly of the car itself. There is 4 T27 Torx on the bottom and 2 on either side on these little arms that go off to the side. Be sure, as usual, to keep track of your items so that you don't lose any Torx, bolts, or anything. As aforementioned earlier in this video, make sure to clean all metal joints that butt up against the parts that you removed, because dust will cause a leak. In the coolant system, it'll cause you to lose fluid. In the air system, it'll cause a vacuum leak. When you're looking for parts for this car, in this case the water pump, OEM parts, that is, there's going to be some slight differences in this case, and the video will be showing this, but a little bit will also be explained if you can't see it well in the video. On the old part, you have a metal gasket and rubber O-ring for sealing purposes on the water pump. On the new part, you merely have the entire thing made of metal with a paper gasket. Again, they both work, they both hook in. It's just a slight difference to note if you're worried if it's the right part or not. Due to an issue with one of the T27 Torx we had being stripped, I'm going to be using a set of 4 10mm bolts instead. If at all possible, I recommend you use the original parts. As you watch a speed-up section of the reassembly, I hope you realize the relative simplicity of actually putting this vehicle back together when you know how things come apart properly, such as the thermostat assembly, which, again, we didn't realize until I made this video, embarrassing as that is. This is where we put the water pump pulley back on. Again, as we took it off, you have to put it back on, gently tap on it on all sides, or there's an actual tool for putting this on, which I recommend you get if you really don't want to do this way, because this can risk breaking the actual pulley, so it's not useful. Earlier, of course, we had to weasel a socket into a very small gap, but when you realize you can take it apart, well, you don't have to do that anymore. It's a lot easier to get access to. After this, you simply put all the hoses back on, then put the throttle body back onto the car. Same process, 4 bolts, don't tighten it too tight. Make sure it's tightened properly and evenly. Following this, you make sure everything's plugged in and put everything back together properly. Don't forget to put the air filter back in and put the plastic intake, whatever it is, back onto the vehicle. Now, with the car seemingly fully assembled, some people might think you're done, but you're not done quite yet in this case. You still have to put coolant into the entire system. To do this, the process is that you first turn on the heat on the car and just have the battery running. This will run the auxiliary pump. You then fill up the reservoir and watch as it sucks in the coolant. This may take a while, but you just watch the coolant go down ever so slowly, fill it up when the reservoir is empty, occasionally run the engine, in our case, and it shouldn't take too long. Of course, test drive it at highway speeds afterwards just to make sure your repair is done right. Thanks for watching, everybody. When you're done, you can always put the obligatory piece of ugly plastic back over your busy engine and now drive away on your test drives. Hope this was very helpful, but of course, if you have any questions or critique, please leave it in the comments below. This was a lot of work. I also apologize for not uploading as often. I can only really upload when I have a problem with my car due to the nature of my videos. I will, of course, be changing my channel ever so slightly to be able to put more content up. Whenever I have car repair videos to make, though, I will be making and posting them here as well. Also, if I forgot one more thing, please like and subscribe. if the screen hasn't told you to do so already. I recommend you follow what the screen says.